Hey, I'm Robert Downey Jr., and Esquire has asked me to explain some things.
I knew that playing Strauss in Oppenheimer was going to be like picking fly shit out of pepper.
Like you, be strong to hold the powers of the sun.
I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Listen to Pavarotti.
Can I be your superhero?
Hello, welcome to The Revealing. I am your host, Pavarotti, and I'm here to discuss the Idaho 4 case. And as always, in an effort to try to explain as much as humanly possible in this cryptic case with so many different things going on, picking through everything we can pick through to piece things together. Well, I can tell you once again, just like apparently Robert Downey Jr. quoted in an Esquire article that he had to do when he was preparing for the movie Oppenheimer. He had to pick fly shit out of pepper. Well, that's not what we do here. Where do you get that? You watching my videos, Downey Jr.? We're not going to do that. We're going to pick fly shit out of black pepper, which is on a whole nother level than regular pepper. Maybe not. I have some really big stuff I'm going to bring to you in this one. Once we got some of the new evidence, like the body cam footage, the 1112 video, correlating that to court documents, and doing a little research about certain things that we see in released body cam photos, and then taking into consideration, work that a lot of people have done on this case for a long time. In particular, in this video, I want to applaud the work of a former content creator named Get a Clue, because it turns out that, he did a video. It's probably been over a year, and it was a very, very popular video because it really dove into some interesting things as it related to what he called suspect vehicle number 5. And of course, back then, all you could do was look at the 1320 Linda Lane footage and listen, and the 1330 Linda Lane footage and listen. And did he ever? He looked at that footage and he listened. Well, one of the things that he listened for, because you can see a vehicle coming down Blake at about 427, 428, and it has a very distinct exhaust. And as it crosses the 1320 Linda Lane camera footage on the street there, it certainly looked to be a big black truck. So he called it the big black rumbly bumbly truck. And what's interesting is after that vehicle passes 1320 Linda Lane, and then you crank up the volume on the 1330 Linda Lane and you listen, well, you actually heard that what he called the big black rumbly bumbly truck come pulling right into the King Road neighborhood. And then once it shut its engine off, one thing that was clear is you could hear Murphy barking at that time. Turns out we most certainly can hear Murphy barking. But he did something that I think is profound, and it inspired me at the time to check his work. Because he sat there and he listened from the time that very distinct exhaust turned off until there was no more footage of 1330 Linda Lane or 1320 Linda Lane to see if that vehicle ever fired back up. And it never did. Never did. And see, that's what always made me go, well, then obviously the thing has nothing to do with the case, because it's not going to pull up to the King Road residence and turn off, and then you never hear the thing again. And that's what he was trying to say, that was part of the cleanup crew, and never could explain why you could never hear the vehicle start up and drive off again. So because the vehicle never started up and drove off again, I just kind of discounted his work and thought maybe it pulled into a different area. But oh my goodness, he was right in more ways than you'll ever know. He was wrong in a few ways though. And by the end of this video, folks, we're going to have so many questions answered in this case. Now, here's where people get sideways, though. You got to take the atrocity. So you can't. I watch so many different people out there, and I try to watch them, but then I kind of go, oh, just can't do it, because they go through and they take little scenarios of this and that. Oh, look, because of this thing here, look, the sororities did it. The frats did it because of this. It's Jack D. Look at his hand in the car. If you go through all the evidence, I mean, all this stuff, we're taking new evidence and going back through old stuff and trying to put that together. I mean, you got to focus on what's real, and there's got to be corroboration. It can't be one thing and, oh, I've got this whole case. I mean, you're never going to get anywhere doing that. Sorry. But you can take one of the aspects, like the roommates, and you can say, well, the roommates, they were watching Vampire Diaries, so they just made up the whole thing. Well, you can't really go there, because there are certain things that happened. Even though we know they're lying and their lies get bigger and bigger as time goes on, there's certain things that happened that you can't equate to Vampire Diaries, okay? The text messages, all right? Those text messages were real. They weren't making those up on the fly. They're not that sharp, folks. Don't give them too much credit. But you can bet that things happen. That's why when you go into the time frame, you can bet it was probably over right around 420, because that's when their text messages started. But what happened after that and why, what their roles were, I mean, I've given you my opinion. All we can do is give opinions. I believe that, they were spared because of relationships, whether they had anything to do with setting it up or whatever. I mean, I don't know. That remains to be seen. I can tell you law enforcement had questions about whether or not they had any culpability as late as I know for a fact, about December the 5th. Yeah, and I'll show you docs when I get back to the roommates on that. And here's the thing, though. Trying to separate, all right, wow, they did this, so they're guilty of the crime. Take that out. There's a lot of ways that people could have parts in this that aren't actually saying that they're guilty of the crime, all right? They're not the perpetrators. That's what I try to help people separate. But, everybody's entitled to their opinions. But what I'm going to focus on in this one, and I'm going to prove it, is after the atrocities, between then and the 911 call, it certainly wasn't go to our bedrooms and let's just get on the phone and be scared and locked in here until we dial 911. That didn't happen. Okay, that didn't happen. And because that didn't happen, this entire case needs to be absolutely, tore apart with a fine-tooth comb from every aspect, including defense attorneys. Get to filing, Koberger. It's a slam dunk. By the end of this video, I think everybody's going to agree it's a slam dunk, because a cover-up took place immediately after the crime. I'm going to prove it. And it's just amazing to me. It's amazing to me. It's going to be amazing to you by the end of this one, too. Hold on to your hats, folks, because old Pav is going to shock you once more. Ready? Go. All right, now that was at 4:27, but if we go back in time to the text messages and the calls by the roommates, now I have a pretty good understanding of what everybody was really trying to hide around this particular subject, amongst many things. Excuse me. But there's, I don't know, there's one thing that's very apparent. As you go through these, and DM calls BF, BF calls Xana, DM calls Maddie, BF calls Maddie, BF calls Ethan Chapin, and then all the texts start. And no one's answering. I'm confused. What's going on? And then BF outgoing message on Snapchat. When I start looking at these, I start really wondering, was it this one right here that did it? More text messages. Yeah, more text messages. But then get down here to this. Come to my room, run down here. BF, this is supposed to be BF. And then Dylan calls Ethan. Dylan calls BF. BF to Dylan outgoing. But I'm thinking that this one right here may have some substance, because that would have given that person in that vehicle just enough time to be coming over that hill. And it might be one of the reasons why we never heard what Bethany's Snapchat messages really said. We only heard what potentially Dylan said. And it might also explain why Bethany doesn't want to come anywhere near Moscow, Idaho, along with many other reasons. But I believe one of these outgoing calls was from Bethany to this person that pulled up in this truck now. And by the end of this video, you're going to believe it too. And I believe it was specifically Bethany, in my humble opinion, and I'll show you why by the end. But let's move forward. Let me give you an example here. This is the DoorDash driver. And when they pull through the neighborhood, we know they turn on the road in between King and Queen. And you can see their tail lights when they get to that little road. And they hang that right there, and then you'll see as they hang the right, their vehicle just keeps on going, and you can clearly see their lights as they do that. Here's the next example of what they call suspect vehicle 1. As it comes down the road, you see the lights, and then as it turns on King or Queen, it goes down and then comes around. So you clearly see the lights in these windows when that vehicle gets as far as the road in between King and Queen. Now, I know I've showed y'all this before, but in an effort not to leave anybody behind, because I notice in my comments, some people seem to think that the person that people keep showing running out of the house at 3:30 is the King Road house, and it's not. Here's the King Road house. Here's 1112, where the camera is located on its porch, and the camera is facing this direction. And this is the house you see in the video, the one they show you somebody running out of it. You can't see the King Road house on any videos, y'all. But the windows in the house that I'm showing you is this house right here, not the King Road residence, which is right here. And this vehicle, if it pulls up to this point right here, you're going to see its taillights in the windows of this house. So if you don't see the taillights in the windows of this house, that means the vehicle just pulled a little bit past this house right here, possibly even into the King Road residence. So this time we're going to watch it, and I want you to pay attention right here to these windows for tail lights. You can see how we never see the tail lights in the windows, but we know it goes past 1112. So that means it likely either parked next to 1112 or it parked right in that King Road driveway. Now, you can clearly see the vehicle right here. It's plain as day what vehicle this is, and I'll show you. So the key to understanding what vehicle this is we're looking at that pulls into the King Road residence or right there by it at 4:29 a.m., just, 5 minutes after you see strange Snapchat messages and calls from Dylan and Bethany, and what about 7 minutes after all their frantic texts about seeing the guy in the house? Well, now you have this vehicle pull up with very distinct exhaust, very loud exhaust. And we know because of the work of Get a Clue, and I did it myself. And you're just going to have to trust me and trust him on this one, because I can give you the receipt, but it'll take about 4.5 hours of you sitting there with your ear to a speaker. And that vehicle is never heard firing up and leaving out of the area, at least until 8 a.m. when the footage stops. So does that mean it left after that? Quite possibly, because we know it wasn't there in the body cam footage now of the 911 call. Let's look. Now, where this officer is parked right here, the vehicle didn't go that far because you would have seen its taillights. See how he's kind of pulled almost into the road there on King and Queen? So it didn't go that far. And let's see, do you see out there any vehicles that looked like that? Not across the street, maybe down here. It wasn't this little RAV4, because it would never sound like that no matter what exhaust. And that black truck on the right and the one on the left both have beds. The one in the video doesn't. So it turns out after all this time and all the effort that people like myself and Get a Clue put into this case, the answer was right in front of us the whole time. Now, when we go to our new crime scene photos and we get to the driveway out here, you're going to see this black Jeep right here. And you're also going to see this red Jeep over here. Now, if you go through these court docs, I'll show you here in just a second, a lot of the docs suggest that this is Ethan's. Almost everybody knows that this is Ethan's. And this one was Ethan's brother, Hunter. Now, one of the docs actually says that this one was Ethan's. But I think that this one we can be fairly certain was Ethan, and this one right here is his brother, Hunter. And you can see this is an Explorer, and I'll show you what model and everything, because we have it in all the docs. And you can see here's the front of the Explorer. Notice it doesn't have any leaves or anything on it. And we assume this must have been there just, prior to the, officer showing up for the 911 call. But you can see now in the 911 call that those officers showed up and this thing had been parked here. And this is Ethan's Jeep. It looks like he hadn't actually been out driving it in a while. Let me show you. You see, if you drive a Jeep, then it usually makes these leaves that have piled up on it underneath the windshield wipers and the bumper here and on his side steps right here. I used to call these Nerf bars. See how there's leaves just laying there? When you drive that thing, those blow off. But when it sits there for a little bit, it'll collect things like that. It'll collect leaves, and see how the leaves just kind of lay up here on the hood, and over here on the what we used to call Nerf bars. Right, and there's Maddie's Cruise. I take pictures of all these cars. Yep, there's Kaylee's Range Rover. Oh, let's see here. Let's shrink it back down, because it's almost like they, let's see, what are they doing there? They're almost paying. Look, is that a window sticker? That's probably in Kaylee's car. Let's see here. Where are we at? And I know my guy Ken, he's waiting on me to do the footprints in the snow video. And I'm working on it, Ken. I do want to show y'all something though, for those of you out there that get confused when you look at these crime scene photos. You see all these photos right here? Do you see how this snow, here's those footprints that Ken really wants me to cover, and I will. This is all from the night of the crime, right? But you see how the snow only covers just a little bit? I need to stay on topic here. I'll show you this at the end, okay? Footprints in the snow. Let's go down here to our vehicles again. I'm going to show you something. Where are we at? Where are our vehicles? Here we go. All right, so back on the cars, right? This is the big black rumbly bumbly truck we've been looking for forever, and it was sitting in the King Road house this entire time. Got there at 4:29. And I think you'd agree that if somebody gets there at 4:29, then there's things that went on that they didn't tell us about. And I'm about to show y'all, because you see this vehicle right here, because it is a Ford Explorer, and it is a very particular model. It is a limited package, and it also is a EcoBoost. That says 4-wheel drive. Really, it's a all-wheel drive. They call them 4-wheel drives. But you see the Eco 4-wheel drive in the limited package in 2017, which is what year model this is. That actually makes this vehicle a Eco, it says EcoBoost, B-O-O-S-T. But this right here is what's called a 3.5 liter V6 EcoBoost. And the 3.5 liter V6 EcoBoost is like a twin turbo model for this particular engine. And you can see right here, see these exhaust, how they don't actually fit this little exhaust thing here perfect, or maybe they do and I'm just wrong about that, but it really doesn't matter, because you can put basically your same exhaust tips on there, and the exhaust system is what actually makes the sound as it connects to the manifold. So these are going to be some aftermarket exhaust, and when you couple these exhaust with this particular motor on this particular package, wow, does it make a particular sound that we hear in those videos. Now, when we go to the document that lists all the vehicles and their specs right here in the parking lot, you can see that they start off with Koberger's Hyundai, and then Kaylee's Range Rover, Land Rover. I believe that is Xana's Civic, Maddie's Cruise, and Ethan's Jeep, and Hunter Chapin's 2017 Ford Explorer, Washington tags. So we know it's a 2017. We know it's the EcoBoost 4-wheel drive, which means in that particular model in the limited package is the 3.5 turbo V6. In a 2017 Ford Explorer Limited with all-wheel drive typically features the 3.5 liter EcoBoost V6 engine, a standard all-wheel drive system, luxurious interior with leather, advanced technology like touchscreen with Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, 360-degree camera, driver assist features. And what about this 3.5 liter EcoBoost V6 engine? The Ford 3.5 liter V6 EcoBoost is a twin turbocharged direct injected V6 engine known for its strong performance and fuel efficiency, delivering power comparable to a larger V8 engine while achieving better mileage. Man, that's pretty neat. But what's really neat is what happens when you play with the exhaust on it.
2017 Ford Explorer EcoBoost. Really beautiful car, as you guys can see. What we got done on it. Got factory converters there. Secondary converter there. or firewall converter, then secondary converter, and it comes true dual from the factory into a factory dual in dual out resonator there. This one right there. We took it off, put straight pipes in its place, as you guys can see right there. Then what we did in the back, then continued the straight pipe that they had originally, and we put flow FXs, like Flowmaster right there, and right there, part numbers. That's perfect. That's what you were looking for, no rasp, right? Yeah.
Now, we're about to learn some interesting things about this young man that you may or may not have already known. I don't know. But please, nobody jump to he is the unaliver. I mean, I don't even want to see that in my comments. Don't even speculate. The young man had nothing to do with the atrocity. But I'm willing to bet large bucks that he drove up in that Jeep right after the atrocity, probably after receiving either a call or a message from one of the survivors. Now, you may or may not know this, but Hunter here used to date Xana. Yep, he dated Xana before Ethan. Did y'all know that? And Hunter also used to date Bethany. And I think it's that relationship that may be interesting. And if y'all don't believe me, just listen to this. Okay, when we go to ISP report number 452, and you can see that on December the 5th, Idaho State Police Detective Joe Lake met with Hunter Chapin for information about his friendship with the victims of the quadruple unaliving at 1122 King Road, Moscow, Latah County, Idaho on November 13, 2022. Hunter agreed to complete the victim background questionnaire, VBQ, and to be interviewed. Hunter was the brother to unaliving victim Ethan Chapin and had a prior relationship with Xana Kernodle, who was in a relationship with Chapin. Hunter also had a previous relationship with surviving victim roommate Bethany Funk. Hunter stated Kernodle had a lot of admirers, but she and Chapin were perfect for each other. The night before the unalivings, Chapin told Hunter it can be difficult to be in a relationship with Kernodle because she draws so much attention. Hunter stated if Chapin was confronted by anyone, he'd remain calm. He'd prefer not to have a confrontation. Hunter doesn't know why, how, or who unalived Chapin, Kernodle, Kaylee, or Maddie. And I believe Hunter, but I also believe that based on the evidence now, that there's no way that that vehicle sitting in the driveway is not the vehicle we see pulling in at 429, because it doesn't go anywhere. We all know that. And it's Hunter's Jeep or Hunter's Ford that pulls in there. And considering that he used to date Bethany, and he's the brother of Ethan, and he used to date Xana, well, that probably would have been the first person that Bethany called once they realized what happened. And with those outgoing messages and Snapchats and calls that we can't see, I believe now why we can't see them is because of this situation right here. But that means that there's no if, when he came to the house at 429, between 429 and the time the 911 call was dialed, nothing is as it seems in this case. Well, I guess now we know why I mean the people whose last name begins with C and it's followed by an H, and why they would all of a sudden want to file court motions to stop body cam footage and crime scene photos from being released. because they have skin in the game as it relates to that. And you know what? It's also interesting to me now because I've had to see in my comments for so long about how 2 a.m. is such a dark hour because of something they said. Well, now I can unequivocally tell you that they likely got on there, possibly, my humble opinion, and specifically said 2 a.m. is a dark hour because they absolutely knew that their other son had pulled up to that residence at 4:29 and was involved in the cover-up from that point forward. Yeah, misdirection like a big dog in this case. No wonder they didn't want to go to court until it came time to protect their own. Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to point out, that's a bomb, y'all. I'm not just whistling Dixie. When that vehicle pulls in, I mean, you can see it. You slow down the video now, you can see it. It's that Jeep. It pulls into the house. It wasn't Ethan and Xana in that Jeep. So it was somebody, and it was the somebody who drives that Jeep. And that's why it was still sitting there when the 911 call was called. Did y'all ever wonder why they kept that Jeep impounded all that time? Wouldn't give it back to H there? Yeah, because law enforcement knew. They knew as well as everybody else around there knew. All right, this is not some new stuff for them. But you can bet, I just showed you. That's it. That's it. That's it. It's all Pop's humble opinion of his investigation. I'll put 10 G's on it. I'm right on that one, though. Yeah. But as we keep going here, I did a video the other day, and I was pointing out the blue liquid in the crime scene photos that were taken. It turns out they were taken about almost a month after the unalivings. And I suggested, based on some research that I'd done, that it was blue because of the luminol effects of the blood as it dried over time. But I was incorrect. And some people pointed that out in my comments, and y'all think I don't read the comments, and I don't take them to heart. When I read comments and somebody says that luminol will not keep the blood blue like that, and you have to have the UV light for it to turn blue. Well, I look at it and I go, I don't know, that's not what I read, but let me do a little bit further research. Turns out they were right. So it's not luminol. And all of the blue stuff that you see all over the house is not blood. What you're looking at, though, is what's called amido black, and that's the solution. So what they do is they pour the amido black solution on an area, and if there's blood, it will show up a dark color. And if you do some research on amido black, you'll see that it stays that blue color over time. But when you're looking at those crime scene photos now, look deeper into the blue. If you see dark colors in the blue, that would denote blood. And feel free to continue to research it if you like. That's why in the probable cause affidavit, it says that the shoe print outside Dylan's door was, you couldn't see it, and then they had to process the scene twice, once with luminol and once with amido black. I remembered the amido black from that and did some research, and turned out that that's exactly what it is. It's amido black. I got a bunch of stuff I can go over about those crime scene photos, and we'll save that for the next one, though. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Post your comments, thoughts, criticisms, and until next time, Pavarotti's out.